When you change your mind, you change your world. A Buddhist insight. We spend our whole lives trying to change the world outside. Think about it. From the moment we wake up until the moment we fall asleep, most of our energy goes into rearranging the external. Trying to earn more money so we can finally feel safe. Trying to find someone who loves us so we can finally feel whole. Trying to achieve something meaningful so we can finally feel worthy. Trying to remove the people and situations that bother us so we can finally feel at peace. And sometimes we succeed. We get the promotion. We find the relationship. We buy the house. We solve the problem that's been keeping us up at night. And yet, even when we get what we wanted, something strange happens. The relief comes, yes, but it doesn't last. The old restlessness returns, wearing a new face. The anxiety finds a new object. The emptiness somehow remains. No matter how much we change on the outside, something inside stays unsettled, still searching, still waiting for that moment when everything will finally be okay. Now let me be clear. I'm not saying success doesn't matter. I'm not saying we should stop improving our lives, stop working toward our goals, or stop caring about the world around us. These things have real value. Money can solve real problems. Love can bring real joy. Achievement can create real meaning. But here's the question we rarely ask. Why do these things, as good as they are, never seem to be enough? Why does the peace they bring always fade? Why do we keep arriving at destinations, only to find ourselves still searching? Because we've been wrong. Wrong from the very beginning. Wrong in the most fundamental way possible. We assumed suffering comes from the world. So we spent our lives trying to fix the world. We looked at our pain and pointed outward. It's because of my job, my relationship, my past, my circumstances. If I could just change that, I would be free. But over 2,600 years ago, the Buddha saw something different. He saw that suffering doesn't come from events themselves. Suffering is born from craving, from the mind's desperate grasping and pushing away, and it can only end where it begins. This isn't about rejecting the external world. It's about understanding why rearranging it will never be enough, and discovering where true freedom actually lies. This isn't philosophy for intellectual entertainment. This is a map out of a prison you didn't even know you were in. You've probably noticed this pattern in your own life, even if you've never put it into words. You think, if I just had more money, I wouldn't worry so much. So you work harder, earn more, and the worry finds something else to attach to. You think, if I just had a partner who truly understood me, I wouldn't feel so alone. So you find that person, and somehow, the loneliness still visits. You think, if I could just achieve this one thing, I would finally feel like I'm enough. So you achieve it, and within weeks, you're already looking at the next mountain to climb. Circumstances change. Suffering always finds its way back. It shape-shifts. It adapts. It waits. If suffering truly came from circumstances, then changing circumstances should end suffering. But it doesn't. Not permanently. Not completely. So where does suffering actually come from? The Buddha's answer was radical. In the opening verses of the Dhammapada, he declared, "Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows him like the wheel follows the foot of the ox." He didn't say events create suffering. He didn't say other people create suffering. He pointed somewhere else entirely, to the mind itself, to craving, to reaction, to the way we relate to what happens, not what happens. Consider this: the same criticism, spoken by the same person, in the same tone. One person hears it, reflects for a moment, takes what's useful, and moves on. Sleeps fine that night. Another person hears the exact same words and replays them for weeks, constructs elaborate narratives of resentment, lies awake rehearsing counter-arguments. Same words, vastly different suffering. So where is the suffering? Not in the words themselves, in what happens after the words are heard, in the space between the experience and the reaction. When something happens, when you hear criticism, when you lose something, when life doesn't go the way you wanted, there's a natural process that unfolds. First, contact. Your senses meet the world. Then, almost instantly, feeling. A pleasant sensation, an unpleasant sensation, or something neutral. This feeling is automatic. You can't stop it, and the Buddha never asked you to. But then something else happens. From that feeling, craving arises. If the feeling is unpleasant, you want to push it away, make it stop. This craving leads to clinging. You grab onto your story about what happened, your judgments, your sense of being wronged or threatened. And from that clinging, the full weight of suffering unfolds. The initial unpleasant feeling, just a flash, a moment of discomfort, but the craving and clinging that followed. That's what turned a moment into months of resentment. That's what transformed a single event into an ongoing source of pain. Now let me be clear about something important. The Buddha wasn't saying that external conditions don't matter. Illness is painful. Loss is painful. Injustice is painful. These are not illusions to be dismissed. But there's a crucial difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the natural response of a living being to difficult conditions. Suffering is what we add on top. The resistance, the why me, the endless mental replaying, the identification with the pain as who we are. External conditions can be painful, but the mind's craving and clinging decide whether that pain becomes long-term suffering. And if suffering is manufactured in the mind's reaction, then that's also where it can be ended. Not by changing every external circumstance, an endless and impossible task, but by changing our relationship to what arises. The Buddha's great discovery wasn't just that suffering comes from craving. It was that there's a place where the chain can be broken. Remember the sequence. Contact leads to feeling. Feeling leads to craving. Craving leads to clinging. Clinging leads to suffering. This chain runs so fast it seems like one seamless movement. Something happens, and before you know it, you're lost in reaction. But the Buddha saw that it's not actually seamless. There's a gap, tiny, almost imperceptible, but real. And that gap exists between feeling and craving. The feeling, pleasant or unpleasant, is automatic. It arises based on causes and conditions you can't control in that moment. But what comes next? The craving, the wanting to hold on or push away, that's a reaction. It's something added on. And in that fraction of a second before craving takes hold, there's space for something else to happen. This is where awareness comes in. In the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha gives remarkably simple guidance. When experiencing a pleasant feeling, one knows, I am experiencing a pleasant feeling. When experiencing an unpleasant feeling, one knows, I am experiencing an unpleasant feeling. One knows, I am experiencing an unpleasant feeling. That's it. Just know. Just be aware of what's happening. as it's happening. It sounds almost too simple to be transformative. But consider what normally happens. An unpleasant feeling arises, and without any gap, without any awareness, the mind is already spinning stories. This shouldn't be happening. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with them? By the time you notice what's going on, you're already deep in the reaction, building castles of resentment or worry. But when you know that an unpleasant feeling is present, when you actually see it clearly as it arises, something different happens. You have distance. You're not immediately fused with the feeling. There's you, and there's the feeling. Two things, not one. In that distance, the automatic chain is interrupted. Craving doesn't arise as forcefully, or it arises and you see it arising, which changes everything. You're no longer blindly swept away. You have options. Someone says something that triggers anger. Without awareness, you hear the words, anger flares. Harsh words come out of your mouth before you even decide to speak them. Hours later, you're still replaying the conversation, adding fuel to the fire. With awareness, you hear the words, you notice, there's heat in my chest, there's an urge to attack back. And in that seeing, you're not lost. The anger might still be there, but it doesn't have you anymore. It doesn't get to decide what you do next. And here's something remarkable. When you simply see an emotion clearly, without feeding it with more thoughts, it often weakens on its own. Anger that isn't fed doesn't burn as long. Fear that's met with open awareness doesn't grip as tightly. The emotion has no fuel, so it rises, does what it does, and passes, like a wave returning to the ocean. This isn't suppression. Suppression is pushing the emotion down, pretending it's not there. That's war against yourself, and whatever you fight tends to grow stronger. What I'm describing is full acknowledgement. Yes, this is here, but without being owned by it. Seeing clearly, rather than being blindly controlled. The Buddha had a precise way of pointing to this. He never said, I am angry, or I am afraid. He said, there is anger, or there is fear. When you say, I am angry, you've become the anger. There's no separation, no perspective, no choice. The anger is you, and you are the anger. When you recognize there is anger present in the mind, everything shifts. Now you're the one who sees. The anger is a visitor, a temporary condition arising and passing in the space of awareness. You can acknowledge it, learn from it, even act on it if that's wise, but you're not enslaved to it. This is what changing your mind really means. Not changing the contents, swapping one thought for another, one emotion for another. That's just rearranging furniture. True change is shifting your relationship to the contents, from being lost in the stream to standing on the bank, watching the water flow. When I say change your mind, change your world, I want to be very clear about what kind of world I'm talking about. This isn't about positive thinking magically attracting wealth. The Buddha didn't teach magic. He taught something far more profound and practical. In the Rohitassa Sutta, he said, "It is just within this fathom-long body, with its perception and mind, that I declare there is the world, the origin of the world, the cessation of the world, and the path leading to the cessation of the world. The world, its arising, its ending, and the path to freedom, all of it exists within this body, within this mind." This isn't mysticism. It's pointing to a simple truth. You have never experienced a world outside your own awareness. The world out there is always the world as you experience it. You might object. The physical world exists independently of how I see it. And yes, that's true. Mountains don't move because you think about them. But here's the thing. You don't live in the abstract physical world. You live in your experience of it. And that experience is profoundly shaped by the mind. Consider something almost everyone struggles with: the fear of what others think of us. The fear of being judged, criticized, rejected. This fear runs so deep in most of us that we don't even see it as fear anymore. It's just the water we swim in. We spend enormous energy managing our image, saying the right things, hiding our flaws, avoiding situations where we might look foolish. We replay conversations wondering what they really meant. We lose sleep over a single critical comment. We hold back from doing what matters to us because someone might disapprove. With the old mind, praise feels like oxygen, and criticism feels like death. Our sense of being okay depends entirely on the verdict of others. Every interaction becomes a test we might fail. This is a world of constant anxiety, constant performance, constant exhaustion. But when the mind changes, something remarkable happens. Praise comes, and you notice a pleasant feeling arise. You see it clearly, and you don't cling to it. Don't build your identity around it. Criticism comes, and you notice an unpleasant feeling arise. You see it clearly, and you don't push it away. Don't spiral into self-doubt or resentment. The praise and criticism still happen, but they no longer control you. They become what they always were: just words, just opinions, just weather passing through, not the measure of your worth, not the foundation of your peace. This isn't about becoming cold or indifferent. It's about freedom. When you're no longer enslaved by the fear of judgment, you can actually listen to feedback without defensiveness. You can show up more authentically because you're not constantly managing how you appear. Same world of opinions, completely different experience of living in it. This is what the Buddha meant when he spoke of the mind being luminous by nature. The Pabhasara Sutta puts it directly: luminous, monks, is the mind, and it is defiled by incoming defilements. When craving and aversion are no longer running the show, experience itself changes quality. Not because the external facts are different, but because you've stopped adding darkness. And there's another level to this transformation. When your relationship to your own mind changes, your actions change too. This is simple cause and effect, not mysticism. When the mind is dominated by fear and reactivity, what kind of actions follow? Defensive words, people-pleasing, hiding your truth, missed opportunities because you were too afraid to try. But when awareness is present, different actions become possible. You speak more honestly. You take risks that matter. You build real connections instead of performing for approval. The Buddha put it clearly in the Nibbidhika Sutta. Intention, I tell you, is karma. Intending, one does karma by way of body, speech, and intellect. When the mind changes, intentions change. When intentions change, actions change. When actions change, results change. This isn't magic. It's just how things work. So, change your mind, change your world, points to two levels. First, the immediate transformation of experience. When craving loosens, the same situations feel fundamentally different. Second, the gradual transformation of circumstances. When your actions come from clarity rather than reactivity, the external situation tends to shift over time. Both are real. Both matter, and both begin in exactly the same place. You can understand perfectly how a bicycle works and still fall over the moment you try to ride one. Knowledge that stays in the head is just information. The Buddha knew this. That's why he didn't just teach philosophy, he taught practice. a path to walk, not just a map to study. This path requires diligence, showing up even when you don't feel like it. 5 minutes a day, done consistently, matters more than hours of sporadic effort. This path requires patience. Reactive habits have been building for years. They won't dissolve in a weekend. There will be days when the old patterns seem as strong as ever. And here's what I want you to remember. Every time you notice that you've been swept away, that very noticing is awareness. The moment you realize you've been lost is the moment you're no longer completely lost. That's not failure. That's the practice working. The Buddha's final instruction was stark. You yourselves must strive. The Buddhas only point the way. No teacher can walk the path for you. No book can. No podcast can. The moon is your own direct experience, your own willingness to look. The new world isn't somewhere else. It isn't waiting at the end of years of striving. It's present in the very moment you notice. Craving is arising. And pause, instead of being swept away. Every time you do that, even for a single breath, you are already living in the new world. Not because you've arrived somewhere special, but because you've stopped, for that moment, creating the prison. Right here, right now, in this very breath.